Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Week 10 IBEX Unwrap. This will be the last unwrap of the regular season, and I'm Randy Schmidt, and with Tom Genrich. How's it going, Tom?
Going very well, thanks, Randy.
I'm trying to set this Genrich thing going because I called you Genrich for like multiple years, and you're too nice not to correct me. So I'm trying to spread the word on Genrich. So have you noticed the difference?
I have. It sounds very different. I'm so used to people just saying Genrich that when someone actually says Genrich, my ears perk up like a dog. It's like, what?
But yeah, so we'll this week we're gonna cover fantasy stuff, the results from week 10 fantasy, and we're gonna cover the awards on the season. We kind of discuss the awards each week and kind of the rankings on those things, and we'll cover that today. And then lastly, I just want to let people know we have some drawings coming up for some Battalion Bats. We partner with Battalion Bats for some prizes. Along with the 4 award winners that will receive a bat, there's also award winners for, we have all these different things that, like, if you were on a fantasy team that won, you get a bat and things like that. You want to touch on that, Tom? Like, who's all getting?
Yeah.
What are the drawings this year?
Right, the drawings. We give the bat away to the MVP winners and the Player of the Season winners in each division, and then we're going to have a drawing for. Let's see, one drawing for all the fantasy winners. So every weekly winner gets one ticket into a drawing. Yep. And then if you were on a winning fantasy roster, all of those people get thrown into a hat, and we're going to basically pull one name, and that person gets a bat. And then our Player of the Week award in the 55 and 65 division, each division will have its own drawing. So if you were a Player of the Week,
yep.
Every Player of the Week award you won, you'll get a ticket into a divisional drawing. So there'll basically be 4 drawings: the 2 Player of the Week drawings, and then the 2 fantasy drawings.
Cool. Yeah, that was very cool. We got a really silly way to show the results of who wins that. We're gonna have like this we'll just leave it for Twitter. Check Twitter. We'll have those drawings on there, and you'll kind of see how we went about finding those winners, and we'll post those throughout this week and get them out there. So if you have questions on that, obviously hit us up on Twitter and let us know. So yeah, we'll go into the fantasy portion. We did fantasy for most of the season this year, and it was a lot of fun. If you go to indoorbaseballx.com and go to the fantasy tab, I've gone here to week 10 results. And for this week, first place was Kaner, right? Was number 1. Cork was second, and Bad Nate was third. So those prizes, along with the last few weeks, we'll get we'll send you a Dick's Sporting Goods gift card through your email. And yeah, if you don't think we have your email, if you don't mind reaching out to us, it'd be great. But otherwise, we'll try to hunt you down. So
we actually should have all these guys needed to submit their emails to register at the site. So we should have all of their emails, assuming they used a legitimate email.
Very cool. And I'm just glancing at the players that were selected. I see Emery Hull on here. It's good to see him. I see Tom Genrich on there. Bjerke, Faulkner, Valentino Faulkner, Caffrey, Boxall. I wonder if this Johnson is Casey. No, it's Sam. It's Sam Johnson.
That's Sam.
So,
I had Casey in my squad, and he had a good week, but I mean, Sam had transcendent weeks his last 2 weeks, so it's hard to score 192 points.
Yeah, so this is the optimal lineup here. Sam Johnson, 192 points. You can see how good that is compared to the even 2 through 5. But yeah, you can kind of see who performed really well from a fantasy standpoint this week, and this would have been the ultimate lineup for the week. So a lot of fun. We are not doing playoff fantasy. But it was a lot of fun, and I think we've learned a little bit about how we want to score it, and but it was a really good start to fantasy, and I really enjoyed it. Did you, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, it was another layer of labor to get this up and running, especially get it. We went from 0 to 60 in about week 4 to get it going, but it worked out. The scoring cohered, it held together, and we're a little bit behind on the gift certificate giveaway, but we'll catch up. So yeah, all in all, I think it was an unqualified success. I think.
I agree with that. Yeah, and yeah, like Tom mentioned, I think we owe like 3 weeks of, might even be 4 weeks of winners, and we'll definitely get those sent out. We kind of did one batch halfway through, and we'll get the second batch done here shortly. So again, if you ever want to kind of see what's going on in IBEX, go to our Twitter, twitter.com/indoorbaseballx. This is just kind of a way for me to kind of show the headlines of what's going on. And one headline is Ponce. Well, do you say Ponce or Ponce?
I don't know.
Okay. But he was the player of the week for the 65 division this week. And cool picture there of Juan. And then Casey Howell was the player of the week for the 55 mile an hour division, which is the American League. And but yeah, you can kind of.
I think it's Howell Casey.
Oh, Howell Casey. Sorry.
He's one of those guys with 2 first names. So
yeah,
whenever I see it, I want to transpose it too, because I know more Caseys than I know Howells.
Yeah, I kind of like
unless it could have been entered backwards in the hit tracks too. So
yeah,
who knows? Yeah.
But again, you'll see like when stats go live each week, you can see that here posted, and then we have our fantasy winners that we posted earlier today. So you can kind of see each week who won there. So just kind of wanted to highlight the Twitter, and it's been fun to talk to different people on here, and we encourage you to join us anytime you can on the Twitterverse. Next thing I want to do is cover the award winners. And if you go to, like I said, indoorbaseballx.com, go to awards, and if you go to the overview, you can kind of get a snapshot of the American and then obviously the national. So we'll start here. We'll start with MVP in the AL, Mr. Scott Butner with 539 points over James Zapp, who really quick, I want to mention, we don't have a tail of the tape this week, but I believe James had 7 home runs in week 10.
I believe he had 7 home runs, which is ridiculous. I mean, he gave Scott a run for the money in the MVP. The only reason he didn't pass, I shouldn't say the only reason, but one reason didn't pass Scott is, the formula that we use, despite the fact that he had this he had like a season's worth of production in 1 week. The formula we use kind of capped his weekly MVP point capture. So it was an extraordinary week, but not enough to make up the lead that Scott had built up.
Right. Yeah. No, it was very impressive for sure. And then going back to Scott here, the winner, you can see if each player, we've kind of talked about this before, but we all have a player card on the website. And, here's Scott. You can get a kind of a snapshot of, he obviously won the MVP rankings. He batted .514 on the season, which is very impressive. And his average exit velocity, 83 miles an hour, which is really good too. He's also personal best is one of our 100 mile an hour hitters. There's not too many of them, and he's one of them. And he's actually hit a home run. Well, I assume it was a home run of 404 feet. I should confirm that. And there's a way to do that if you go through his hits.
It was a home run. I remember it. I was there. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's only 400 foot home run, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of high 300s, but I think that's the only 400 foot home run. So really cool that he won. And you can obviously see his player comp is Paul Goldschmidt, which is pretty cool. He's obviously a good player in the MLB. And anything else about Scott? You can look at all his medals he's got here. But yeah, anything else on Scott that you want to comment, or he just had an off season? There's not much more to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, the one number that pops out a little bit to me is his line drive percentage. I mean, as an IBEX participant, a guy who doesn't hit the ball as hard as most guys do, one thing I do focus on is my line drive percentage. And I struggled to keep it above 30%, and I eventually dropped below 30%. Yep. So the fact that he hits the ball as hard as he does, and he still manages a 40% line drive percentage. If you look at the player comp chart, you can see in TCIBL, that's in the 96th percentile of all players. So it's truly an elite line drive percentage, coupled with just, mashing baseballs in terms of his exit velocity. So yeah, he's a really good IBEX hitter for sure.
No doubt about it. Yeah, that is a cool way to look at it with these comparisons on here. Looks like he's also, pretty elite with the distance and obviously exit velocity. So yeah,
I think that launch angle, to the extent that it's held back by anything, it might be, his launch angle isn't necessarily as elite as his other numbers, which would suggest, I don't know what his ground ball percentage is. I mean, it's pretty low.
Yeah. I mean, you can see right here is how he compares to MLB anyway, and it's his lowest one.
Yeah, I'm going to check his season stats and just see his ground ball percentage. So 28%. So 40% line drive, 30% fly ball, 28% ground ball. But I mean, you look at a guy like Cork, who's, he's an extreme fly ball hitter, and I think his ground ball percentage is probably under 10. So, it's a solid, it's not an excessive ground ball percentage, but, it's not minuscule like some of the other, big producers we see in this league.
Yep. No, definitely. So yeah, that's congrats to Scott, and we'll reach out to him and get him his battalion bat. And yeah, so that's our first award winner of the 2022 season. Next we'll go to the American League Player of the Season, which is Josh Lavoie. I think Josh was in first place for at least the second half of the season. And
he was in a 1-2 contest with his teammate Chris Munchow.
Yep.
I think Josh passed Chris this last week.
Oh, okay. Maybe they were 1 and 2 then for
they were 1 and 2.
But yeah, Josh pulled it out. And I have Josh's player card here. We never got a picture of Josh. We'll have to do that, Josh. But yeah, you can kind of see the biggest thing for Josh was he kind of improved as the season went on, and that's all what we're trying to do in there. So this kind of highlights the person that did that the best, right? And that for that in the American League this year was Josh.
Right. I mean, if you would go down to the bottom of the page, click on his game stats tab, and then scroll to the bottom of that grid, you're going to see he started out with some pretty modest exit velocity averages in those games. Yep. And then as you scroll up to the top of that grid, you're going to notice his average exit velocity gets in the 60s. So he started, his exit velocity normalized. It got to the point where it should get to, and he was building off of a pretty low baseline. And, that's what basically won him this award. The fact that he started out slow and he got to the point where he should be. And, we've talked before about how it takes guys a while to kind of figure out the cage. And this is another example of that. I think this was his first season in the league, and those first 2 weeks, he really struggled, and then he got the hang of it and showed the kind of improvement you need to show to win this award.
Definitely, and you can kind of see it in his trophy case here. He had a couple of exit velocity improvements and also a couple of line drive percentage improvements, and these are the type of things you got to do to win this award. So yeah, really cool that Josh won, and we'll reach out to Josh and make sure he gets his battalion bat. And yeah, congrats, Josh. We'll move to the National League, and MVP, I don't know, no surprise here, Tom Corcoran with the win for the MVP of the National League. Keith came in second. Tino had an awesome year as well, came in third. Yeah, and if we jump to Cork's player page, he's comps out as Anthony Rendon, which is pretty cool. Things that jump out to me is his 523 average. His average exit velocity was 83. Line drive percentage 32. His all-time best is 99. He usually lives in the mid 90s, I would say. But yeah, the guy actually just crushes so many doubles and home runs. Just an extra base hit machine. And yeah, just no surprise there. He led the way for most of the year.
Randy, check out the middle of the screen and look at his player comp. Look at his ground ball percentage bar. Look how low that is. So I'm looking at I'm looking at his season totals, and his ground ball percentage on the season was 13.1%, which was, looking at that bar, I think that was the best, or at least the lowest ground ball percentage of probably anyone in the league. I mean, it had to be top one or top two.
Right.
So I mean, and you played with Cork, you played with him inside and outside, and he is an illustration of the difference that launch angle can make to a hitter, right?
Yeah, definitely. I always grew up, coaches would teach you, hit the ball on the ground or hit it, line drives. And it's kind of an old school approach. And I think what we're finding in real life, because I play with them all summer, like you mentioned, and in this is, the launch angle is a big deal, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like pop-ups are bad, right? But like fly balls to the outfield that are well struck, good things happen. And Cork kind of highlights that, I guess. He really in real life hits doubles and triples, and he's even has a couple inside the ballpark home runs. He hits home runs. He broke the Federal League home run record this year. So the guy, I don't know. I think of that when I see Cork, because I don't know about you, but I definitely was taught as a kid, like hit it on the ground and make something happen. And we were finding with this, and then it's just growing as a player, and is that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a certain build. You have to be able to create a certain amount of leverage, right? Like a guy who can't hit the ball far probably isn't going to do well consciously trying to elevate the baseball. But Cork has got enough length and enough strength that when he elevates the baseball, like you said, he doesn't just hit the ball over the fence. He hits the ball over outfielders' heads and into gaps, and they turn in extra base hits. So he really does use that swing and that launch angle to his advantage. I mean, his fly ball percentile in the CCIBL this year was 97 or 98.7. So he is an extreme fly ball hitter. And again, when you couple that with his strength and his ability to put the barrel on the baseball, you're going to see the kind of numbers he puts up, which are just extraordinary.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, you can see all these categories he's leading the way in, with OPS, exit velocity, launch angle, distance, and then the fly ball one, he's right up there as well. So he must be second in fly ball. He's not on the.
Yeah, there must be somebody, and I'm not sure what my at bat minimum is.
Oh, that could be somebody that played.
It could be, but there could, like last year, Elliot Engen played in the league, and I played with him, and I mean, he probably had a fly ball percentile that was almost as extreme. So it would, that's the kind of thing that we could drill down into the stat base and figure out, who was the guy who had a higher fly ball percentile than Cork. That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah. And if it's a regular player or not, but either way, you get the idea. The guy hits at some point when you cross a certain level of exit velocity, you should hit some fly balls, right? And Cork hits the ball hard enough where he should hit those fly balls. So, but I get your point, right? If you don't have a really big exit velocity average, maybe you shouldn't be hitting fly balls, right?
Yeah, and they're taking the shift away from baseball in real baseball, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see if the swing evolves to kind of go back a little bit in the direction of bat control and field control, as opposed to what it is now, which is basically just trying to turn and burn and elevate everything.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see how the game evolves as they phase that shift out of the game.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And like even yourself, you crushed baseballs and home runs and doubles for decades, but now your game is you're trying to hit as many line drives now, right? So you're trying to hit line drives as opposed to fly balls at this point in your career, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who plays in hit tracks will end up playing a slightly different. They'll play a game that's suited to their skill set. Like I can't hit home runs anymore, so yeah, I go in there and I try to hit as many line drives as I can, basically, and I'm not all that good at it, but everybody has a ceiling, right? And you just try to get as close to your own ceiling as you can. And if you bump your head on your ceiling, it doesn't matter how low that ceiling is, you can still find enjoyment in bumping your head on it.
Yeah, exactly. 1995 Tom Genrich though is turning and burning, right?
1995 Tom Genrich is probably somewhere in the 90s. I don't think I could have broken 100, but man, I was strong. You know,
I've seen it. I saw you in like 2008 or around there first, and I definitely saw you still were doing it at that point.
and I was 38 years old.
Yeah.
I was 38 years old, Randy.
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
But yeah, so it's really cool. I like the way you said that too. Everybody's gonna play to their strengths like you would in real life, and it's just Tom's strength is launching the ball. So that's what he's doing, and that's why he's MVP, and that's why he's getting a battalion bat. So we'll reach out to Tom and get that for him. And then we'll go back.
It might be worth adding as just a postscript. If there's one guy who doesn't need another bat, it's probably Cork. Like I don't think I've never met a man who has as many bats as Cork does. I mean, God bless him. I mean, he puts them to good use, but
it's like his golf clubs, right? You just got so many options.
I was at his house once and he had his bats like in this basically garbage can in the basement. You would not believe how many bats a man has, but he makes it work. So
I'm the exact opposite. I have the exact same bat for the last 10 years. I've been swinging the same type of bat. So,
well, I mean, it's kind of like, this is going to sound sexist, but like sometimes I look at a woman's shoe collection. I'm like, well, you only really need 2 or 3 of those. And that's kind of our approach to bats.
Right.
Whereas Cork is more like a shoe closet, a closet full of shoes. That's kind of Cork's style. But again, it works for him. So. Yes, right.
But you mix it up a little bit with the length of the bat and it seems like you're going 33 and a half. What I'm trying to say is everybody does it a little different, right? It's kind of interesting to see. And Cork has like an array of different bats, and I know you mix it up a little bit too. And then there's others like me that I'm terrified to switch it, to a 33 and a half because I think it's going to ruin me. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so we'll go next to the player of the season, and he almost cleared it by 100 points. He smashed everybody as Bjorn. Bjorn's the player of the season for 2022 in the national division. He led the way the whole way pretty much, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this many times. If he was attempting to game the system, and I know he wasn't, but he was attempting to game the system to get himself a bat, he did exactly what he needed to do, and that was really struggle early on.
Yep.
Really perform far below his talent baseline, and then just turn it on. He did the same thing last year. He found his groove mid-season, and he just coasted to a victory. Although he didn't win it last year, I think he was caught by someone at the end. At any rate, he's a fixture on this player of the season scoreboard because every season his trajectory follows a similar path where he just gets better as the season goes on.
Yeah, which is cool. It's really nice that he was able to do that, right? And basically his floor from early on was here, and his ceiling is so high, so it creates this like space where he can grow throughout the season. And, some guys aren't able to have that same floor and ceiling, and you could argue one way or another what's better or what's worse, but that's just how we all are, right? Some of us have great days and some of us have terrible days, and some people are just steady. So I think Bjorn is just you can see he can be elite, right? Like 93.5 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, Randy, actually, you're on the American division because he played one game with the Cubs this year. So right. Flip over to the next.
Yep.
So in the American division, he was David Ortiz, which doesn't surprise me because he was playing. He was playing in a slower.
Is Dave Ortiz division. And Steven Duggar? Is there a difference in talent there? But either way,
yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but then I thought, well, I guess I better say something.
Yeah, no. Either way, he's got 86.9, which is like a pretty high exit velocity. Like the guy can hit the ball hard, is what I'm trying to say. And he's also strong.
He's a strong dude. We had our playing game against the Raptors, and I was reminded that he's just a young, strong dude. He can hit the ball hard.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's again much like our winner from the American League. He showed progress. He probably won a bunch of medals, I'm guessing. Yes. Wow. Look at his trophy case. Some of these aren't from this season, right? Because it starts 2021 here, but you can see all the improvement medals he won. And there's probably a correlation between winning these medals and showing improvement and the player of the season, right?
For sure. I mean, he's probably the Michael Phelps of Ibex in terms of just his. I mean, who's won the most medals in U.S. Olympic history? Is Phelps, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's probably the Michael Phelps of Ibex. He probably has more medals than anyone.
I like the sound of that. But yeah, so really cool that Bjorn won this year. I think his dad won player of the season last year.
I think, yeah, his dad. I think his dad did. I mean, it's on our
for the American League, I believe. For last
jump over to our page. Yeah, it's on our. He's in our Hall of Honor. So last year it was, yeah, it was Dale.
Yeah,
Dale in the 55 and Keith in the 65.
Yeah, this is a fun one to revisit a little bit. So MVPs last year was Tony Boxwell, and is Tony playing this year?
I don't know. I don't think he is. I want to. No, he hasn't played this year. No.
I feel like he'd be showing up on the MVP list. Emery won an MVP, and then we actually had 2 seasons last year. So Chris Lyons won and Noah Danner for kind of the first half of the off season, or I don't know if we should call it the off season or the season. But player of the season winners here is Dale and our friend Keith, and then the season prior to that was Sean and Carl. So we'll add the new winners excuse me, to the Hall of Honor, which is, I mean, it's as prestigious as it gets.
Right, and then there's that divisional player of the week tab, and I'm behind there as well. And I think I last posted those in week 6. But if you were a player of the season this year, you'll be permanently enshrined on this page. And again, I got some catching up to do, but
yep,
we'll get everybody on there who should be on there this year too.
What are we doing wrong, Tom? You and I have never won anything.
Well, I mean, I'm not good enough to be MVP, and I'm too consistently mediocre to show a lot of improvement as the season goes on. So that's my problem. Now, you are good enough to win an MVP, and I think you're too consistent. I don't think I think you got more consistency. So I think a player of the season is going to be tough for you, but I don't think an MVP is out of reach for you.
I think, yeah, there's so many good hitters. It's tough to compete in that one for me, but yeah, really cool. So check all this stuff out on the website. As Tom said, we'll update, the Hall of Honor page and all the award winners. We'll make sure they're recorded here. So you'll go down in history as a great IBEX player. I mean, what else in life could you possibly want? But yeah, so that's the biggest things we covered. The fantasy week 10, and thank you all for playing. And again, if you were in a fantasy lineup that won at all this year, you're going to be in our drawings for an battalion bat, which is really cool. If you won in fantasy, you'll be in a battalion bat drawing, and so just because you didn't win one of these awards doesn't mean you're not going to get a bat. It could happen, right? So stay tuned for those announcements. We'll make sure to post them to Twitter. And then secondly, we covered the awards and kind of went over all the different winners for 2022. It was really cool to see kind of who did really well this year, and it makes me wonder too if Emery was able to play the whole season, if he would have been in the mix for Cork for MVP. It would have been quite a tight race.
Yeah, Cork shared with me a table in an email, and I told him he should tweet it out. He still may tweet it out, but he basically pulled the season lines for him, Sam Knight, Emery, and one other guy.
Tino?
I forget who the fourth guy was. No, maybe it was Tino. At any rate, like, the metrics were really, really close. And his point was, if everybody had played a full season, how interesting that MVP race would have been. And I think he's right. I think, like Sam missed a week, Emery played at the very end. I think Cork was just about the only guy who played the full season. So I think you're right. Like, had we had Emery the full season, had Sam not missed a week, maybe Jack Nelson was the other guy. At any rate, it would have been really interesting if every guy had played every week. And we mentioned before, next year, I think we'll give everybody a mulligan where if you miss a week, you don't get penalized. And if you don't miss a week, we'll drop your highest score or something. But we'll do something next week so the penalty isn't as draconian. feel a little bad that a guy like Sam, for instance, lost out, not necessarily because of his performance, but because he wasn't there. So we got some work we got to do, and we know that.
Zap is the other one, right? If Zap is there every week, or maybe he was, we'll have to look, but he had such a strong finish, and I'm curious if he missed a week along the way, maybe it looks different too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about it. If you miss a week, it just absolutely hamstrings your chances. I mean, it just cripples you. So
yep.
Well, I think we got to do something about that, and
yeah, we'll take a look
all off season to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then last thing I just wanted to touch on before we let everybody go is the playoffs, and we're doing this video after the play-in round has happened, and then now we're into like the first round games, I guess we'll call it, and the next 2 weekends will be playoffs. And Tom, you played in a playing game. Kind of, you want to talk a little bit about how that went or what it was like? You, instead of playing the Mammoth every week, you kind of got a different feel for things, right?
Yeah, I mean, though we play the Mammoth every week, I wouldn't describe those as contests. It's more like you guys have curb stomped us pretty much every week. This felt different because it was a 3-0 game, and we weren't playing the whole league. We were just playing the Raptors. So I had forgotten a little bit. It's definitely a different atmosphere, a different feeling. And I think in a perfect world, our league would probably incorporate head-to-head play, in those individual games would matter in the standings. But as we've talked about before, we can't have teams playing on different nights and incorporate head-to-head schedules. It just doesn't work. We have to use the system that we're using. So we kind of lose some of that head-to-head competitiveness and the juice and the electricity that you feel when it's a one and done situation, or even just a situation where you're just trying to beat the other team. So it's good that we have this playoff format, so we can kind of reintroduce that to the league.
Yeah, no, definitely. There is something about, like I've been playing this weekend, and it's one game, and if you have a bad game, you're done. So and then just having that competitiveness, it will be a lot of fun to see how that goes. And I think there's one round of games this Sunday, and then next weekend is the finale of it all. So it'll be fun to see. There's a few teams emerging and getting hot, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. So but yeah, anything else you want to cover? Otherwise, I think that's about it for this week. And again, we'll
go
ahead.
Just a real quick thank you to you, Randy, and to Kenny. Kenny hasn't been a part of these streams, but he's definitely a part of this this team we've put together to run this IBEX show. So just a tip of the cap to you. You're the reason why we're doing these podcasts, and the reason why, to the extent that they have any professionalism at all, it's because of what you're bringing. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. You're the one that's doing all the stats and all the hard work behind the scenes. So yeah, it's a group effort, and thanks to all the players that played in it. And it's just been a lot of fun, like just having baseball in our lives throughout the winter when we live in Minnesota is pretty cool. And yeah, hope to keep it going. Obviously, thanks Mike Santi too for using his cage up there and running the league out of there. And he's the commissioner of the league and came up with the playoff strategy, and among a million other things. So thanks Mike for everything he does. And then Battalion Bats, maybe we'll mention him too. We work with him to get bats out for awards and everything. So thank you to Jackson for all of that as well. So yeah, it's really cool. And now we're kind of ending the indoor season, and we're getting into hopefully outdoor stuff here soon. And what a nice way to like spend the winter and stay ready for baseball. So but yeah, very cool. All right, again, we'll post those award winners, those drawings this week, and look for those. And yeah, otherwise everybody, good luck in the playoffs, and we'll see you next season. Thanks
Everybody.